Hello student, today is our third lecture on topic number 1, that is making of Indian Constitution, and in this lecture we are going to discuss about the formation of Constituent Assembly. So what you will learn in this topic, first what happened after cabinet mission plan, and second thing that we are going to discuss is how Constituent Assembly came into existence. As we in last lecture discuss about two very important proposals given by the British government, that is Cripps proposal and cabinet mission plan, and we also discuss their relative success and failure. Okay, so now in this lecture we are going to discuss about the post cabinet mission plan, that is what actually happened after that and how the Constituent Assembly of India came into existence. So what happened after the cabinet mission plan? Let's take the first issue. As we already discussed, cabinet mission plan was part success and part failure. Okay, well, it is what the part success because it has recommended that there should be Constituent Assembly elected by certain formula, and it was a failure because its all other major recommendation were not accepted by either by Indian National Congress or Muslim League. The mission couldn't resolve major differences between Indian National Congress and Muslim League. The mission recommended the creation of one Constituent Assembly for undivided India and provided for manner of its election. So this is the very important recommendation on the basis of which the future Constituent Assembly for the framing of Indian Constitution was actually came into existence. As per the plan, election to the Constituent Assembly were completed by August 1946. So as per the plan provided by the Cabinet Mission Plan, so the first important task was to elect the Constituent Assembly that will frame the future Constitution of India. So those elections were conducted in August 1946. On 6 December 1946, that is 3 days before the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly, the British government for the first time acknowledged two state and two Constituent Assembly. So look, if you understand the sequence also will, so first of all in August 1946, the first that is the election of the Constituent Assembly were conducted, and 3 days before the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly, that is on 6 December 1946, the British government for the first time acknowledged two state and two Constituent Assembly. So this was I think one of the most dramatic event, because both Indian National Congress and Muslim League members has participated in the August 1946 election, and after election and before the meeting of the Constituent Assembly, the British government declared that they have now in principle accepted the partition of India and two Constituent Assembly. As a result, Muslim League members did not attend first meeting of Assembly on 9 December 1946. So after August election, the first meeting of Constituent Assembly was organized on 9 December 1946. But even though the Muslim League members were elected, but they decided to boycott the Constituent Assembly because on 6 December the British government gave a different offer, that is two state and two Constituent Assembly, and that's why they thought that it is completely meaningless to sit in the Constituent Assembly when we are going to get our own. Okay, so these are the certain events that happened. The Muslim League demanded separate Constituent Assembly as a part of its two nation theory. So this was their very early demand. We also discussed this point in Cripps proposal and cabinet mission plan. So this is how the event later on unfolded. The British government sent Lord Mountbatten as a Governor General of India to solve this problem. Okay, so what happened after the British government accepted the demand of two Constituent Assembly, and after the boycott of Muslim League of the Constituent Assembly that was elected in 1946, so it has created a very different kind of deadlock, because the working of the Constitution has already started from 9 December 1946, but there were no member, that is most of the member of the Muslim League were not present in the Constituent Assembly. So there was a question how to frame the Constitution when a larger section of the Muslim community was absent. Okay, and so it has created a kind of problem, and to solve this problem the British government sent Lord Mountbatten as a Governor General of India to solve this problem. Okay, on 26 July 1947, Lord Mountbatten announced the setting up of separate Constituent Assembly for Pakistan. So by July 1947, and it was also clear that that India is to get independence, and there will be also the partition of India, and so the British government officially accepted that now they are ready for creating a separate Constituent Assembly for the Pakistan. Okay, so after the recommendation of the Cabinet Mission Plan, first the election were conducted to the Constituent Assembly in August 1946. Somehow, in the December 1946, the British government informally accepted the demand of two constituent assembly as repeatedly demanded by the Muslim League, and this has created a very different kind of deadlock because they started boycotting the constituent assembly, and then there was a question how to frame the constitution, and then the Lord Mountbatten came and he gave his own plan, which is popularly known as the Mountbatten plan. So later on, let's discuss this another aspect of today's lecture, how Constituent Assembly came into existence. Okay, now that is, we already discussed the election were conducted in August 1946, but how actually it came into existence. So Constituent Assembly was an elected body which discussed, debated, drafted and enacted Indian constitution. Some of the important facts about its structure can be discussed as follows. So number one that we need to understand is to define the Constituent Assembly. So it is a kind of elected body which actually frame the Constitution of India, and through debate and different kind of discussion. So its structural form can be discussed as follow. So suppose if you take first issue of composition, what was its composition? So Constituent Assembly initially was made of 389 members. That is for undivided India. That is that is before the partition of India and creation of Pakistan. The Constituent Assembly consisted of 389 members. 292 members elected from provinces through provincial legislative assemblies. 93 members from princely state to be nominated by heads of princely state. We will discuss what is provinces and princely state. 4 members from chief commissioner's province. However, after partition of India and creation of separate Constituent Assembly for Pakistan, the membership of Constituent Assembly for India was reduced to 299. So originally it was 389. Okay, 92 members from provinces, 93 members from princely state and 4 members from the chief commissioner province. But after the partition of Pakistan, the number was reduced to 299 for India. Seats allotted to provinces were to be divided among 3 major communities: Muslim, Sikh and general. So as per the population proportion of these different communities, so seats were divided. Now second aspect is manner of election, that is how the Constituent Assembly members were elected. So first of all, the member of Constituent Assembly from among the seats allotted to the provinces were elected from provincial assemblies. So this was a, you can say, indirect kind of election. So the 92 members that were allotted to the provinces were elected by the provincial assemblies. For example, the provincial assembly were similar like today's Vidhan Sabha that we have for the different states. Earlier they were known as a provincial assembly. So the elected members of provincial assemblies elected the members of the Constituent Assembly from the provinces. So this is a kind of indirect kind of election. It was an indirect election in the sense that eligible voters from people did not elect members of Constituent Assembly. So it was not a kind of direct election. For example, if you consider the election of Lok Sabha, this is an example of direct election because we elect our representative directly. That is, we go for the vote and we select or elect our candidate. But this kind of direct election was not there. So already elected members elected the members of Constituent Assembly. Okay, so this kind of overlapping kind of voting was there. People elected members of provincial assemblies, and elected members of provincial assemblies participated in election of Constituent Assembly. So people first elected the members of provincial assembly, and that was also very limited people, and those elected members of provincial assembly participated in the election of constituent assembly. So in this manner you can discuss about the composition and manner of election of the constituent assembly. And then we come to the second point, or another very important aspect. So this is the map of British India. It is quite older one. I think it is around the late 19th century map of India. So that's why it looks very different. So in the composition of Constituent Assembly, we hear two words: provinces and princely state. So what actually these provinces and princely state, that we will discuss here. So British colonial authorities ruled India with two administrative systems. That is, when Britishers came to India, so already there was some system or administrative system was working there, and after that the Britisher also made certain modification for their own convenience. Okay. So provinces covering around 60% of territory of the Indian subcontinent, and princely state covering around the 40% of the territory. So the basic geographical unit through which this British government ruled India was a provinces and princely state. So what is provinces? So provinces were British territories completely under British control. At the time of independence, India had 17 provinces, but after the partition, the number was reduced to 11. Okay, so you can say that the provinces were simply those geographical areas where there was a direct control of the British government. Popularly, we know as a Bombay province, for example, you can take, and like that, there were around 17 provinces existed during that time. But after the partition of India, some provinces were merged or went to the Pakistan, and that's why the number was reduced. For example, you can have example here. So here is a one example of United Province. So this is a United Province, which is today known as Uttar Pradesh. So Uttar Pradesh historically was a part of United Province. Another example of province is a Bombay province, that today is known as a Maharashtra. During that time, the entire Bombay province was made of Maharashtra and Gujarat. But we know that on 1st May 1960, this province was bifurcated, and a new state of Gujarat and Maharashtra was created. Then you also have another example, Central Province, which is today known as a Madhya Pradesh. Okay, so Madhya Pradesh historically was a part of Central Province. So these are the areas where there was a direct rule of the British government. Another geographical entity was a princely states. So what were the princely states? So princely state were states in British India with local ruler or king with title like Maharaja, Raja, Maharana, Rana, Nizam, Badshah. The state were ruled by local king or ruler. These rulers were subject to British Empire, and before the partition of India, around 584 princely state existed in India. Just imagine that kind of number. So the princely state are something like a semi-autonomous geographical areas ruled by the local king. Okay. And if you see, the number is a quite staggering number, 584. Around 584 princely state existed in India, and this was the biggest task in the post-independence India, which is what we call the integration of this princely state in India. That is a completely different topic. Okay, so you can take example of princely state. For example, this one known as a Hyderabad. Okay, this is the one Hyderabad. Nizam was ruled there. It is one of the very big kind of princely state existed during that time. Another example you can take is a Kashmir. Raja Hari Singh or King Hari Singh was popularly known as who belonged to the Dogra community. So this is a one example, and you can also have the one example of Rajputana princely state. Okay, so like this, some smaller, some bigger, or some even very tiny kind of princely state existed during that time. So this is an example of provinces and princely state, that how you can define. Okay, so so majority members of the Constituent Assembly came from the provinces, that is these bigger provinces, and members of the princely state were never elected. They just got nominated by the heads of the that particular princely state. So this is the administrative India. Now let's come to the second point. So this is the here I am going to give you graphical representation, that is how Constituent Assembly came into existence. So this is Constituent Assembly. Total member 389, provinces 292, princely state 93, and chief commissioners province 4. This we already discussed. But after partition of India, there were 299 members, from provinces 229 and from princely state 70. Okay, and this is the official seal of the Constituent Assembly. This is that is what they have accepted. That is this is the head of the elephant, and this is the undivided map of India. So this was the official seal of the Constituent Assembly. So out of 229 members, how many members were elected from each province? So there were total from 12 provinces this member were elected, and we are discussing only for divided India, not undivided India, that is the India after partition. Okay, so from United Province, 55 members. United Province means today's Uttar Pradesh, you can say. Bihar 36, Madras 49, Bombay 21, West Bengal 19, Central Provinces and Berar 17, East Punjab 12, Orissa 9, Assam 8, Delhi 1, Ajmer Merwara 1, and Kurg 1. So in this way, these 229 members were distributed in different provinces. And as far as the manner of election are concerned, so as we already discussed, the people of India did not directly elect this member of Constituent Assembly. So they elected the members of provincial assemblies. Okay, and this was a direct kind of election. That is, first of all, they elected members of provincial assemblies. For example, election to the 1585 seats of provincial assemblies were conducted in December 1945. Okay, so the last provincial election in uh, India that happened was in 1945, and this was one of the very interesting election. And look, this election were not conducted as a part of cabinet mission. Cabinet mission came in 1946. This election was a regular affair. It was about to happen. Okay, this was bound to happen. It was not like that to create Constituent Assembly this election was conducted. This election was a routine matter. But what happened when the cabinet mission plan came and they discussed about the manner of election? So they suggested the formula that if you go for the direct election, it will take lot of time, and considering the urgency and the manner in which this all things are happening, so it will be better that why not elect the members of Constituent Assembly from the provincial assembly, elected members of the provincial assembly. And that's why this indirect formula was there. So people elected members of provincial assembly, and these members, elected members of provincial assembly, elected this amount of number to the Constituent Assembly. So members of provincial assembly elected the member of Constituent Assembly. Okay, so this is one thing, and that why this is a kind of indirect election. And look, one interesting fact about this provincial election that happened in 1945 was that there was no adult franchisee during that time. For example, the principal law that governed the voting right was the Government of India Act 1935, and that act has given a very limited kind of voting right to the people. For example, the voting right was qualified by tax, property, and education. Around 28% of India's population participated in this provincial assembly election. And this was the one of the very important criticism that is leveled against the Constituent Assembly, because they said that this is not a completely representative body, because most of the Indians were not part of the voters for the provincial assembly election. But we will discuss later on how the Congress leadership overcame this particular criticism. And this is how these provincial assembly members were sent to Constituent Assembly. Okay, then another aspect is a princely state, 70 members. Okay, so members of the princely state were nominated, they were not elected. For example, 44 members from single princely states like Alwar, Baroda, Patiala, Travancore. Okay, there are total 17 bigger size princely state. From this bigger size princely state, 44 members were nominated. and 26 member from 10 different groups of princely state. Because if you consider their staggering number, it was not possible to give membership to every person from every princely state. So what they did, they simply said that the bigger princely state will get a single kind of membership, okay, and the other remaining smaller princely state, they will be grouped into different geographical areas like north, south, east or west or what it may be, and from that particular group members will be nominated. Okay, so this was how the Constituent Assembly came into existence. And so after discussing that, let's have a quick recap of what we discussed in this particular lecture. Okay, so first, election to the Constituent Assembly were completed by August 1946 as per cabinet mission plan. Second, 299 members elected from provinces, 93 members from princely states, though were nominated, and 4 members from Chief Commissioner's province. After partition, Constituent Assembly of India retained 299 members, 229 elected members from provinces, 70 nominated members from princely states. Elected members of provincial assembly participated in election of Constituent Assembly. In that sense, elections were indirect type. Okay, so this is a point we also discuss in detail. In next lecture, you will learn about the working of Constituent Assembly. Okay, so Constituent Assembly has been created, we discussed that point, and in next lecture we will discuss how this Constituent Assembly actually function, who were its member or its manner or nature of what we call a representation. So all this thing we will discuss in the next lecture. Till then, thank you.